Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's timely press conference. My name is David McNeil. I'm a freelance journalist and also a member of the PAC committee, the events committee of this club. It probably didn't escape your notice that abortion is probably the hottest topic in America right now after the Supreme Court effectively banned it. Japan, of course, does make abortion available, but there are problems which we will discuss today. Abortion pills will be approved in Japan later this year, but according to the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare, women may be required to obtain consent from the partner in order to receive the pills in accordance with the Maternity Body Protection Law. That's a 1948 law that allows women to ask for surgical abortion under certain circumstances. In many cases, women's clinics ask for the consent of the women and their partners, even though the law recognizes that in certain cases, such consent is unnecessary or unobtainable. The cost of the pills could also be expensive, and many women may not be able to afford them, which risks driving them online to purchase cheaper but more dangerous pills. We have two people here today to discuss those developments, but also in general, just what is happening to abortion in Japan and the general background in Japan. We have Kazane Kajiya and Kumi Tsukahara, and I believe that Tsukahara-san is going to go first today. They are both members of Action for Safe Abortion Japan. Tsukahara-san, yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Before you start, can I just remind you, if you haven't already, to switch off your keitais in case they go off in the middle of the press conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kumi Tsukahara. I've been researching abortion issues in Japan since 2003 and teach health rights at Kanazawa University as an adjunct lecturer now. I'm the head of the RHR Literacy Lab and a member of Action for Safe Abortion Japan. We've been advocating for better sexual and reproductive health and rights in Japan. Today, I'm going to talk about how abortions were used to maintain the obstetric business in Japan, rather than support women's life decisions. I would also like to outline how reproductive health and rights have been ignored willfully as a means to suppress women. This was of a particular political movement, namely the Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, and Nippon Kaigi. First of all, as most of you may know, the first international document in which the concept of reproductive health and rights, RHR, appeared was the Action Plan of the International Conference on Population Development, ICPD, held in Cairo in 1994. The RHR was a groundbreaking concept that addressed reproductive issues based on individual human rights, breaking away from the traditional focus on national population strategies. There are many issues surrounding reproductive health and rights in Japan. But at the core of the issues, there are two strong pressure groups that hinder women's reproductive rights, I think, namely obstetricians who are licensed to perform abortion and LDP. JAOP, Japan Association of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, is the association of obstetricians who are licensed to perform abortions and have a monopoly on legal abortions as they are designed by the maternal body protection law. JAOZ insists that abortions have to be performed by the outdated curettage method and that they need to be paid more than 100,000 yen per abortion, which is over 700 euro. Last year, there were over 114,000 abortions in Japan, which means the members of JAOG are paid 100 million euros. Their strong resistance and insistence on abortion profits is the reason why the oral contraceptive pills was not approved in Japan sooner than 1999. It's they who now oppose the approval of abortion. It's they who now oppose the approval of abortion pills in a way that makes them more accessible to women. If abortion pills are priced in line with international market prices, the profits from the procedure will disappear. The medical associations have strong ties to the LDP, and some LDP representatives come from the medical associations. The other organization which is influential is Nippon Kaigi, as I said. They oppose the liberalization of the family and the recognition of the rights of women and sexual minorities, such as separate surnames from married couples and same-sex marriage. Nippon Kaigi is not comfortable with women having better access to abortion services. Given the opportunity, they are willing to limit the abortion options. They are the reason why sex education is not available in Japan. Both men and women will be deprived of their right to self-determination of their bodies. The relationship between the LDP and Nippon Kaigi became very strong in the 2000s. The LDP erased the words gender and reproductive rights from the second plan for gender equality in 2005 and had it written that abortion in Japan is prohibited by the penal code as an abortion crime and cannot be performed freely because of regulations under the maternal body protection law, including certification by designated obstetricians and spousal consent. These biases have been mitigated since the DPJ cabinet created the third plan in 2010, and they are no longer so blatant about after the return of the LDP to power. But the basic human rights of women in Japan have been infringed by limiting abortion and contraception access. The excuse used for this infringement was the declining birth rate and aging population in Japan. Women and sexual minorities who are possible to conceive do not have a voice comparative to the LDP. The LDP and economic elites in Japan are very anxious about the decline of the birth rate. So they are not welcoming liberal policies on contraception and abortion. We must fight these forces and take back our reproductive rights. This is our human rights. Thank you for listening to me. It's important to reiterate that reproductive rights are human rights. Access to safe abortion in a dignified manner is a birthright of everybody who can conceive. These rights are under threat in the United States, Poland, and Japan, but still, I insist, this is our right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kajiya-san, you were going to speak next?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you to come here to listen our stories. So I actually selected several articles. Some may find it a little bit too much, but in order to find out what's really going on with women in Japan, I kindly ask you guys to read it through. I'd like to talk about, so mainly the content may be a little bit similar, but I'd like to talk about abortion issues in Japan, including spousal consent and pricing. And also I recently conducted a survey, and my target was women who had been denied abortion because of the spousal consent requirement. So I tried to deliver their real voices as well. So, and later, some of you are probably going to ask about the situation in the United States of America, and I have a message for them as well. So let me start. So Japan still criminalizes abortion and women inducing abortion through medications. Under the Penal Code 212, which clearly violates the warning number 1 made by the World Health Organization. And maternal body protection law allows women to have abortion, but under special circumstances, but only if they have a spousal permission signature on their consent form before their surgery. Abortion pills are to be approved in Japan after Japan finally and possibly reluctantly admitted that the pills are safe and effective, although I've seen some authorities trying to spread misinformation about these pills, how dangerous and fatal these pills can be, by exaggerating some information about how these pills work. And according to the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, women in Japan may be required to get spousal authorization to take the pills under the law, the maternal body protection law, that stipulates women need to get the spousal consent for abortion. In addition to that, as Kumi mentioned, some gynecologists wish to make the abortion pills as expensive as 100,000 yen, which is approximately $800 for what is called hospital administration. Although the average unit price of a combi pack is only 780 Japanese yen, which is approximately $8. And we cannot deny that this particular medical field has put financial burdens as well as emotional distress on women seeking abortion more than they should. According to the warnings made by the World Health Organization, abortion pills are registered as the essential medication, which means everyone should be able to access these pills at a reasonable price, regardless of their financial status or with or without third parties' consent. They demand that each country provide abortion pills and abortion services at a reasonable price in which anyone can afford since 2003. So we would like to tell you guys that what this country need to do is that they need to scoop up the weakest and the poorest in this nation. I've seen some of you may think Japan is one of the richest countries, but I've seen a lot of pregnant women who cannot pay 10,000 yen, let alone 100,000. Not being able to pay should not be the reason to ban medical care they are seeking. And if a woman cannot pay for her abortion, it is the country's responsibility to help her out. And it is the country's responsibility to make sure that make sure that even the poorest and weakest in the society can have access to medical care and protection. Their human rights and dignity matters regardless of gender or nationality in this country. So as an activist, I know two main reasons why women cannot seek abortion or decide to seek abortion outside Japan. So it's because of the spousal consent. This is number one. And the number two is the extremely expensive abortion cost in Japan. So that's the main reason why they told that they cannot have abortion in Japan. Imagine that the pain of women being denied medical care they desperately have sought only because of the lack of a male authorization signature or money. Denying or delaying abortion due to the lack of money or third parties' consent clearly violates human rights, as well as the warning number 2 and 7 made by the World Health Organization. Depriving women of the power to control their own future only because they don't have a spousal permission and money is not maternal body protection. We demand Japan start treating women with respect and dignity, and let women access safe abortion at a reasonable price without anyone's consent but them. For the poorest and weakest in this country, we demand Japan fully decriminalize abortion and amend the maternal body protection law to secure safety, dignity, privacy of pregnant women, and abortion access for everyone. Now I'll try to talk about the survey I recently conducted. So my target was, as I said, was women who had been denied abortion because of the lack of spousal authorization. As you can see from the word spousal consent, if you're not married to that person who impregnated you, you don't need to get a permission from that person. But 80% of them said that they needed to have consent from the man, whoever it is, impregnated her. And 30% of them responded that they had to give birth against their will because of the lack of the spousal consent. It is unimaginable, but more than 1 out of 10 responded that they had been forced to give birth against their will in this country. This is something happening in this country. Some of them also shared very personal experience on my survey. One woman said that she was forced to go back to her abuser, like rapist, for authorization. The other one told me that she had to travel across the country only to get the spousal permission from the man who impregnated her. While she was having terrible morning sickness, she was forced to travel across the country, and she had to wait for him to show up all day. And one person said that her husband changed his mind right before her surgery and broke the abortion access by dissuading her from getting one. And she was forced to give birth against her will. She also added that even though she has love for that child that was born that time, she said the desire, the real feeling that she wanted to have an abortion, or she wanted to decide by herself during that time will remain in her heart for the rest of her life. Another person said she was a victim of domestic violence, and there was a restraining order from the police, but when she found that she was pregnant, the doctors kept denying her abortion because she didn't have the spousal consent from her abuser. And these doctors kept procrastinating and denying her abortion up to 20 weeks. And as she was running out of time, she decided to go back to her own abuser for permission with the intervention of the priest. That's something women has to do in this country. We understand that it's imaginable, and nobody, as Japanese, I don't think this is something happening in my country either, but please listen to the voice of the unheard. I think the country knows women are as powerful as men, and we are capable of making decisions by ourselves. That's why some countries, including Japan, has weakened women intentionally so that we cannot make decisions in order to make us feel powerless. Some countries, although the degree differs, they tell us what to do, what we can or cannot do with our bodies, or should not do with our bodies. And to some degree, they also try to tell us who we can love or who we cannot love. We are tired of this. We need change now. For young women and young people in Japan, I try to tell them, I understand that they're busy with their normal life, like everyday life, but please don't stay apolitical, because if you stay or remain that way, this kind of thing will happen to you or your family or your friends. Or even when it's not happening around you, maybe it's just visible, not visible. And also, right now, women are forced to give birth against their will. That's something happening in this country. Whether or not you know this person or not doesn't matter. This is something happening in our country, and we need change. We can choose our future by voting. So for women, I personally would like to ask them to vote whoever it is, the politicians who treat us as humans and individuals, not somebody's wives or mothers or daughters, because we have every right to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kajiya-san. Just on a couple of points of clarity. So the cost of an abortion, just for people who do not understand the background, the cost of an abortion in Japan is about 100,000 yen, is that right?
Yes.
And this has to be paid out of the person's own pocket. It's not part of the health insurance, yeah. And 114,000 abortions took place last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I suppose the question that will be on everybody's mind is, based on what happened in America, isn't Japan reasonably liberal? So I think what we should probably do is just clear up a couple of things. One is, abortion is illegal in Japan except under special circumstances. Can we just clear that up? Because everybody says it's legal, but it's illegal except under special circumstances.
Yes.
Right. But 114,000 abortions seems to suggest that it's quite easy to get, yeah? Do you want to just address that point, and then I'll go to the questions that have come in for you, if you don't mind. Either speaker.
Well, so Japan still criminalizes abortion under the penal code. However, some people insist that there are a lot of abortions going on in this country, so it can be legal, but it is not. So, like Davidson said, so in order to get an abortion in Japan, the surgical one is the only method they can have legally. And one person said that she gave up on having an abortion because she was afraid of the surgery procedure itself. But she also added that if she had another way to end her pregnancy in Japan, she would choose to take the medication. So my point is, so abortion is not covered by insurance at all in Japan. So you have to pay out of your pocket, no matter what, unless you have very, very special conditions that can be fatal to you. So women are forced to pay a lot of money, like 100,000 yen for first trimester abortion, and if it's the second trimester, possibly it's going to be even more expensive, possibly up to 600,000. So the problem is that Japan has given this privilege to very special doctors, limited doctors called maternal designated doctors. They can set whichever price they want. So that's why the cost of abortion differs depending on the clinic, even in the same prefecture. So they can add unnecessary procedures, or they can add unnecessary options without telling the patient to exploit more money from pregnant people. So in order to stop that pricing, and make it better for women and everyone to get an abortion, we need to stop that system as well. Also, abortion should be covered by insurance, or if not insurance, some other medical association or like assistance may be required to some patients who are living in poverty. So that's something we cannot ignore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, let's go to the questions then. This one is from Philip Brazer, who's a freelance writer. He says, in connection to what we've just said, has there been any effort to legalize abortion so that it can be covered by national health insurance? So has there been an effort to legalize abortion in Japan?
Well, so it is such a hard question, because when you say it's illegal, when you say it's illegal, you may think it's not accessible at all legally, but Japan, the situation is different. You can still get it, but it's still stigmatized and criminalized. So we are trying to abolish this decriminalization of abortion as well. But if it's fully decriminalized, some doctors will lose their privileges as well. So that's why they're opposed to do it. Yes.
There's no choice of contraception and abortion. We don't have choice in Japan. We are allowed to do abortion, but the abortion, I think because abortion is free and accessible, I think the designated doctors want to control over it. So they can earn from it. That's my idea.
Got it. Thank you. The next question is from Pio D'Emilia. He's the Sky Italia correspondent in Japan, and he's also chair of the Professional Activities Committee, which organizes press conference. Judging what's happening in the US and several European countries, Japan still looks pretty liberal as far as the abortion law is concerned. Specifically, the sort of request issue that you've just spoken about, the requested consent of the husband and the father. It seems that most doctors do not actually request that. Is that true? They turn a blind eye to it? Or in practice, it's not demanded in all cases. Could you want to address that point?
Okay. So what these doctors really care is about formality of the consent form rather than the actual law that took in place. So according to your survey, 70% of gynecologists are opposed to force women to get spousal consent for abortion. But since we still have this maternal body protection law, they are required as designated doctors to get spousal consent for abortion, whether they like it or not. What they care is about formality or possibility of getting sued by the third party, like male partner, because the law stipulate that man can stop women from having abortion, and it is man's right in this country. So that's why doctors are so afraid of getting sued in this country. So if we do not remove this spousal consent, they will keep feeling that way and asking women unnecessary consent for their own safety. So what they really care is about formality and the possibility of getting sued. So whether or not the person on the consent form is a real father or not actually doesn't matter. So they're not going to investigate anything. So some women reported that they needed to put some random names on the consent form. But some women, especially young ones, are very innocent. And if the doctor says, no, you need to have that name, somebody else's name, a male name on the signature form, they believe that, and then it just made them feel like they had no other choices. So this law basically tells women to tell a lie or make excuse or justify their decision if they do not have a spousal consent or male permission on their consent form. They are required or forced to tell a lie or fabricate the document or justify their choice of abortion or justify why they cannot get permission from the man who impregnated them. So that's the problem. So some women are very honest and innocent, and they feel like they have no other way. So if they cannot have that consent form from the man, some of them don't think about fabricating a document, but instead they were forced to give birth against their will in a very dark public restroom, for example, all by themselves. This has to be stopped now.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a second question from Pio, which is, why, in your opinion, is abortion so popular in Japan? Popular is probably not the right word, but why are there so many abortions in Japan? I mean, again, we're stuck with this kind of curious fact that although it is illegal, 114,000 abortions take place every year.
Okay, so the reason why so many people have to choose abortion in Japan is lack of the contraception in Japan. So in Japan,
and we lack sex education.
The lack of sex education as well. So most of the people use condoms only in Japan. So it has like high failure rates as well, of course. And some women still choose to take pills, but they could end up getting pregnant as well, because for some people it is hard to keep taking the medication around the same time, for example. And there was one person who said that she found out she was pregnant on the pill because she got COVID and she couldn't take the medication during that time. And because of that, she was pregnant. She got pregnant against her will. And the only method available in Japan, the method of contraception is very limited in Japan. So they either use condoms, male condoms, or contraceptive pills, or IUD or IUS. But IUS and IUD are not really spread or barely used by women because it's very expensive here.
Yes.
So when I went to see a doctor to have my IUS in, they charged me 140,000 yen with local anesthesia. Later, one doctor, like one of my friends, told me that they intentionally added unnecessary examinations to make it expensive.
Yeah.
And I preferred it was like general anesthesia. They used general anesthesia, but I preferred local anesthesia. But some doctors simply doesn't have the techniques to apply local anesthesia on women, so they had to use general anesthesia, which is more expensive. That's why I was charged so much But so because of extremely expensive cost of such effective birth control and contraception, a lot of women, like so many people, just choose to use condoms, which are the least effective.
Thank you. And the pill in Japan, the contraceptive pill, is not widely used. Is that correct? It's still not widely used, although, as you said, it was legalized in 1999. Do we know a percentage for how many?
3%.
3% of women use the pill. And presumably is that because of the cost or because of, I hear a lot of women say...
Cost, I think, yes.
Right, not the health issues.
Not
a lot of women are
health
concerned
issues,
about health.
No.
How much is a contraceptive pill in Japan? Do we know?
Well, it depends, but it's 3,000 per month.
3,000 yen?
Yen.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
per month, yeah.
And that's considered costly, is it?
Or more.
Or more. Okay, thank you very much. The next question is from Dennis Normile from Science magazine. Could our guest briefly describe the certain circumstances under which women can request a surgical abortion? What circumstances can women, under what circumstances can women request a surgical abortion?
Well, so most women having an abortion in Japan has to justify that their choice is due to their financial situation, even when it's very not. But what the doctors care the most is about the formality of the consent form and whether or not women can pay everything out of her pocket. So the reason, although according to the penal code and maternal body protection law, it is stipulated that women can have abortions only certain circumstances, but it's not always the case, because if you say it's a financial reason, it is. They're not going to verify or investigate anything, but what blocks women from getting abortion in Japan is that stigma that is still rampant in this country, and the cost that they are forced to pay without anyone's assistance. The Japanese government and then this country basically tells women to give up on having abortion if they do not have enough money, permission from the man who impregnated them. So that's the main problem. So in Japan, I think if you are rich and if you have the permission from the man who impregnated you, I think we can say that it's accepted in most circumstances, because it is unlikely for doctors to deny women's abortion for reasons that why they needed to have an abortion. But they still try to dissuade women from having abortions as well by putting a lot of like misinformation and stigma on her decision making as well. And some also, on my survey, some also responded that they were, so this one lady, she said she was forced to look at the sonogram in the operation room. She was like laying on the operation table, and one nurse came to her and grabbed her like this with her both hands, and she was forced to change her position, like change her posture, so that she could see the sonogram and what is inside her womb. And she said it traumatized her for the rest of her life. So this is something some doctors do in this country, which makes it harder for some women to choose to have an abortion.
Thank you. Kajiya-san, you've mentioned that survey several times. Is that a survey? That's the one you did. Do you want to say how many people you surveyed and when?
So far, like 60, no, like 58, like almost 60 people responded. So when I started this survey, I thought nobody's gonna answer my questions, or maybe like 1 or 2 people would try to share their stories. But I was so surprised because I received more than 50 answers, like respondents, soon after I launched this survey. Yeah. So that means they need to speak out. They just don't know how. And they're forced to hide their true feelings and voices and experience by whatever factors. stigma in this country, and like male oppression by males, and male dominant society. But I was very glad that these women, although the experiences can be traumatic, they are brave enough to speak out, and I will keep giving them like safe platform to talk about it.
When did you do your survey?
1 month ago.
1 month ago, thank you. I'll just pause there briefly to say if anybody in the room has a question, please raise your hand, indicate you would like to come, because there's a lot of questions online. I'll just scan the room. Okay. The next question is from Eric Johnson of the Japan Times. I'm sure you know about the US Supreme Court's ruling last week on Roe versus Wade. Of course, everybody does. It's likely to become the main issue in this year's congressional election. Can you please give us your thoughts on the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and whether you think the decision will impact the debate here in Japan on abortion rights? If so, how? Thank you.
I'm so sorry about the situation in United States Supreme Court, but I'm not inclined to believe that mankind is not so stupid. After Second World War, the UN, everybody should have human rights, and we want we pledge ourselves to peace. So I think they promised that for peace, all human beings must be equal and have human rights. And women have human rights. Women have abortion rights right now. UN covenants, human rights covenants, endorse the women's rights for abortion, safe abortion right now. You can check out, I think.
Okay, so let me tell you something. It may not be 100% associated with the question, but when I was in Texas, I was woken up by the sound of the stream flow and bird chirping, and I found it very beautiful. Like, it was something I never experienced back in Tokyo, and I was like, what a wonderful place to be. When I was a child, I was traveling by myself from Austin, Texas to DC, all by myself, by way of Atlanta, and I didn't get, so the airplane I was about to board got canceled, but I didn't get what was going on because the announcement was breaking up. And I remember people were so patient with me while I was grasping what was going on with the plane I was about to board. And after that, I needed to talk to the operator on the line. And she immediately recognized that I was very nervous. And she was also very understanding that English is not my native language. And she was very patient with me and made sure that I was going to be okay. And when I was very young, like when I was a child, when I was at the elevator, one American couple talked to me, but back then I didn't speak any English, so I didn't know what they said to me, but from their facial expressions, I knew that they were praising me, or maybe they said I was cute, or something like that. And even though I don't know the name of any of them, I still remember their smiles and their voices that supported me when I was there. How have you guys been? I hope you guys are okay. I still remember your smiles and voices. And what I want to tell you guys now is that I love you and we love you. And we women, both in Japan and the United States, we deserve everything in our life. We deserve the future we want, and we deserve the opportunity we can take. We should be free in every aspect of our life. Just because you're woman doesn't mean you cannot decide what to do with your life or with your body. You can study as much as you want, just like I did, and you can choose what kind of career you would like to have. But it is so sad that some countries, including Japan and the United States of America, try to restrict what women or its people can do or cannot do with their bodies and with their lives. And it is so sad that to some degree, they also tell us who we should love or we should not love. We just would like them to know that there are people who are taking risks to help them in these difficult times. Just remember that we are strong than we think. Although Japan says that women cannot decide by themselves when making a decision on abortion, I've seen a lot of women who are capable of making decisions on their own bodies. So what countries do intentionally is to weaken us, knowing that we are powerful. So we need change, justice for everyone, both in Japan and the United States. And I would try to tell everyone, like, I have family and relatives in Japan and US. I have friends as well. Whether or not it's somebody I know, doesn't matter. I pray for everyone whose name I'll never know. I love you guys. Please stay safe, and we are going to help you. And this is what we are supposed to do. We need to help each other, and we need solidarity and international solidarity. What we would try to tell Japan and the United States is that the world is watching you. What you are doing right now with women's rights, we are watching, and everybody is watching. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you think, are you okay, Kajiya-san? You're right. Do you think it's possible that some people in Japan are looking at America and saying, well, that's what we need to do in Japan? Do you think some people want to mimic or copy what's happening in America? Or do you think that's very far-fetched, that idea?
I don't think it's far-fetched because Japan is very affected by American cultures in every aspect. So, including ideologies as well. So some people may think if the US says no to abortion now, maybe we should copy that. Because so the United States is a powerful country, and we are influenced by them in every aspect, both in the good ways and bad ways. So if the US denies women's rights, some of them in Japan think that, okay, so it's not a Japanese issue. Other people in other countries are doing it now, so we can do it now. So that's my concern as well.
Thank you. The next question is from Ilgin Yodamaz. She's with BBC Turkish. Can you give us a clear picture of poverty among the most vulnerable in Japan who are directly impacted by the cost of these proposed abortion pills? You've kind of done that already. You've given some examples, haven't you, in your survey of people who just cannot afford 100,000 yen. Do you just want to elaborate a little bit?
Yes. So sometimes I use my credit card information without telling them so that they can have abortions. Before doing that, I never knew that there's so many people who cannot pay 1,000 yen. It was unimaginable for me. After helping them out, I was shocked at how many people in this country, like so many people, like so many young generation cannot afford 10,000 yen. For me, it was only 10,000, but for them...
100,000, right? 100,000 yen.
Yeah, 10,000.
No,
10,000.
10,000.
10,000 for Yes, for abortion. So in Japan, it usually costs 100,000 yen, but I've seen many women asking for help because they cannot pay 10,000 yen, let alone 100,000 yen. If you are minors, for example, it is so difficult for you to get credit card either. So basically, you don't have money and you don't have credit card, so you have no way to pay for abortion.
Thank you. Which reminds me of something that I saw recently, which is Zero Nichi Satsujin, or 0-day murders. I was sort of puzzled by this, that there are so many cases of women in Japan who get into trouble and then have their babies in airport toilets, or, and then they dispose of them. There's been several cases of that in the last 5 years or so. I just read a report by the Japan's Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare. It said 19 out of 64 confirmed deaths in the year from April 2018 were due to abandonment at 0 days. So presumably those are women who are getting into trouble and then unable to pay for an abortion. Is that right?
Yes, so I'm not sure if it's a matter, but one case, one case, a woman was denied an abortion because of the lack of the spousal consent, and the doctor said that she needed to have permission from the man who impregnated her and abandoned her, and she was trying to contact him, but he was out of reach already because he didn't pay a penny. Not knowing what to do, she was trying to get help, but several doctors declined her request on abortion, and she had to carry it to term. And when she was about to give birth, I'm not sure if she knew what was going to happen to her body, but she later said that she started having pain in her tummy, in her stomach, and that's why she went to the public restroom. She was forced to give birth there against her will, but she said because she was breathing profusely, she passed out and she didn't remember most of them. But as when she was passed out, she was unconscious, and while she was unconscious, the baby died. So it was not her actually killed the baby. But after that, when she woke up, the baby died. Baby was already dead. So it is natural for her to know, not to know what's gonna do with the body. So she decided to bury the body. So she digged and then put the body of the baby and then covered it with the salt. And if I was in that situation, I think I would do the same, because now I wake up and there is a body of somebody, and if I cannot do what else I'm supposed to do, I would be in panic, and I didn't know what to do, although it was not my intention. So who else can do better? Like at the court, I heard that at the court said that she could do better at resuscitating the baby that already died, but of course she was not a doctor or paramedics. So even if I was in that situation, I could not do anything to resuscitate or make the baby help as it's dying. So I think they're asking too much on women who were vulnerable and suffered a lot already.
You may be talking about the case of the woman who buried her baby in near Hamamatsujo Station. Is that right? This was 2000. Just for people who don't know, it's November 2019. The mother was, well, we shouldn't name her, but she later told police she had given birth in a restroom alone in Haneda Airport, strangled the baby, then flushed the placenta down the toilet. The Tokyo police found the infant buried in a park about 500 meters from Hamamatsujo Station. There are quite a few cases like that. The next question, and I think we have time for maybe one or two more, if that's okay, is from Roger Schreffler, who's an ex-president of the club. He wants to know, are cases like this common? Again, if you could just address that, or do many doctors and clinics ignore the law? Roger's understanding is that it is rather easy for women to get an abortion in Japan. Some clinics in Tokyo even prohibit men from entering the premises. They stop men from entering the premises. That's Roger's question.
Yes, that's true. And I very appreciate their policy. So the gynecologist I currently go to, they also prohibit men from entering the clinic itself. So it is critical for women to have privacy. Some women are the victims of rape and sexual violence as well. So if they try to have an abortion, they might feel terrified or uncomfortable around men. So we need to, so when you think about abortion and gynecological issues, we put women on the first priority. So I hope there will be more clinics that accept women only and prohibit men attending abortion, because some clinics just told me, according to the survey and the comment on my petition, some of them said that the doctors and some hospitals required men who impregnated them at the present to be present on the day of abortion to make sure that women are not lying or anything. But it's an infringement of privacy. Some also added that they needed to have permission from her husband to use anesthesia, epidural during labor as well. So I think the hospital that protect women's privacy are absolutely necessary, and if not, doctors will keep asking unnecessary presence of men as if they're a guardian or something. And when we think about women who got pregnant after sexual abuse, rapes, and domestic violence, they need somewhere safe to have an abortion. So I think that's a great policy. It doesn't have to be applied to every hospital, but what matters is the choice of women, each woman. And if they are comfortable that way, it should be protected as well.
Thank you very much.
I should add one
Dozo.
thing. On the other hand, it's problematic, but there are some people who are, whose gender is male, but who can pregnant, and they're helpless more than. There are no people, no doctors, little doctors can see them right now. So that's another problem.
Thank you. I think, am I right, some people support the idea of men having to give consent because it forces them to take responsibility. That's the view, right? By forcing men to sign a consent form for abortion, you make them part of the problem. You make them responsible. Do you have an answer for that? What people say? It's a tricky one, I know, but.
Well, so the problem is that when the opinions are different, so if a woman would try to terminate a pregnancy and her husband doesn't want her to terminate a pregnancy, this law grants men to make decisions more than women. So that's the problem. So if you cannot have an abortion legally without a male name on your consent form, that clearly indicates that you cannot have an abortion without his approval. So the most serious problem of this law and situation is that it gives power on men more than women. So that's the problem. And also, so many people, so many women who experienced unwanted pregnancies told me that the man just abandoned them or just run away or cut the contact after finding out their girlfriend are pregnant. So although if a woman put random name on the consent form, they are worried that they could be sued or prosecuted because of what they did, but there is no punishment on men who abandoned women, or there is no punishment against men who just didn't want to pay the abortion cost and run away And also there is no punishment for doctors who deny abortion due to the lack of spousal consent and money. So when it comes to punishment, whatever situation, women was the one who need to be punished. And basically, men and doctor can do whatever they want because despite the regulation, they are free to go, they are free to run away. They can just rock women, and they can just run away without paying a penny.
Thank you. Well, we've time, I think, for just one more question. Is that okay? I know we're a little bit out of time here. But this last question is from Justin McCurry. He's from The Guardian correspondent in Tokyo. How big a factor is the male domination of Japan's parliament in perpetuating restrictive and expensive access to abortion services?
Well, you see, the penal code is age-old, more than 100 years old, and it not changed at all. 100 years ago, women were dominated by men. At that time, penal code was created and still here. That's the problem. This should be changed. In the South Korea, they said the penal code is 60 years old and it's too old, they said. How about that? More than 100 years old, and it was, at that time, daughters were sold, and women, wives could not challenge their husband. They are totally dominated. At that time, penal code was created.
Yes, and also in Japan, so the Japanese policy and how they regulate what we can do or cannot do with our bodies or with our lives, does not always reflect the view of young people, like young generation like me. But since the Liberal Democratic Party, which seems to be very conservative, is very dominant in Japanese diet. So it is so hard to change that. And also, like we said, the Japan Association of Obstetricians and Gynecologists also male dominant, although it's women's bodies. So when we go to the website or to check the policies of each party, we just notice that not every party is not like them. Like not every party is trying to control women or sexual minorities, but even when young people decide to go vote, it is so hard to overturn the view that already rooted in this country. Like maybe the Liberal Democratic Party is the safest, and some of them feel like there is no other option. But if we go to the website to check the platform where young people can post on what kind of policies they would like to have, you clearly notice, it clearly shows that it doesn't reflect how Japanese people feel in general. We are not opposed to abortion. We are not opposed to same-sex marriage. We are sorry that our country is this way. We need more young power to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Well, who knows? Dozo.
There's a controversy between young female doctors and JOAZ, discussed in the FIGO journal. I think you have handouts, so please check it out. There, the female young doctors and the older JAOG doctors, what they are discussing. Please check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're a little bit over time, but thank you very much. I was about to say maybe sometime Kajiya-san will run for office. Who knows, right? Do you ever have that ambition? You're asking young people to get more involved in politics. Any case, many thanks to Kazane, Kajiya, and Kumi Tsukahara of Action for Safe Abortion in Japan. As they said, the abortion pill should become available later on this year in Japan. Maybe you could come back after that's available and talk to us again. Thank you very much. Do show your appreciation for today's speakers. Thank you for coming.